When I leave a movie theater, I often have a lot of opinions swarming at the forefront of my mind, like alligators, according to this movie. My thoughts are often unfocused and easily distracted, also like alligators, according to this movie. But still, I think those immediate thoughts are just as important as my clear and concise ones, so I'm going to give you both for the 2019 film, Crawl.
Grab your families, your loved ones, and get out.
So I just saw the movie Crawl, and if there was one thing going through my mind throughout the entire runtime, it was that I liked this game, but it would have been a million times better if he was fighting alligators. And thankfully, Crawl gave me exactly that, only not really. Okay, so Crawl, and I am of course saying Crawl, not Crawl. If I was saying Crawl, I'd have to hold up this game instead. Are you asking whether or not I have video games for every possible situation? You tell me. So I saw the movie Crawl, and it was actually really great. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. As I sat there in the theater, I was like, actually feeling this like weird emotion that I don't usually feel when I see a lot of movies today, especially thriller and horror films, and that's something called tension and anxiety for the characters, mostly the dog, but the other characters I guess were pretty good too. The story of Crawl is there is a woman named Haley, and Haley is on the swim team for the Florida Gators. And yeah, the entirety of southern Florida is about to get whacked by a hurricane, so clearly fiction. And she decides to go and look for her father, who isn't responding to her calls or her sister's calls. And they're sort of estranged, but she's like, you know what, screw it. I mean, this Jeep's got four-wheel drive. I'm just gonna drive into the mouth of a hurricane and hope for the best. First she goes to like a condo he's been renting and finds his dog, and the second they show the dog, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be anxious this entire movie waiting for them to do something horrible to the dog. Please don't do anything terrible to the dog. So she takes the dog deeper into the hurricane. So to find him, he's at their actual house that he was trying to sell, and he's knocked out. She finds him passed out in the basement. He's got like a big wound on him, and she starts to drag him away, and that's when they get attacked by the gator. And the rest of the movie, however long it is, they spend the entire time getting harassed by not one gator. I honestly thought this movie, because I don't pay attention to trailers, I just kind of see what movies are about and I go, or, I made the grave error of attributing an Asylum-esque production on this film, and that was unfair. Because I honestly thought it was like Attack of the 70-Foot Alligator, Sharktopus, or any kind of movie you would expect the Asylum to make. I thought that's what we were getting into, and I thought it would be cheesy, and I basically thought it would be an Asylum film with a little bit more of a budget. And I was wrong. It's like a real movie that's worth watching. Even though it's not about the fact that the alligators are like 20, 30 foot long. I don't know the average size of an alligator. I don't like alligators. I do not go out of my way to find them, for various reasons. Mostly because I like my limbs where they are. So anyway, they're being attacked by not one alligator, not two alligators, not even three alligators, but like 30 of them. And there's so many alligators that just attack in this movie, and it gives you exactly what you'd want out of a monster feature like this. You got a couple of characters that you can actually care about and want to see survive, but they still introduce enough fodder characters where you're just excited to see them get eaten. So there's this, like the first one, there's these three randos on a boat, and they go to the gas station that's across the street, and literally they pick up like a fucking cartoon. They're carrying an ATM out of the gas station over their heads and putting it in the boat, and they're like, ha 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 ha, and then they get eaten, and it's hysterical. I guess if there's any problem I have with the movie is like both Sergeant Barry Pepper and Haley, they both get bitten a fair few times between the two of them. Like, He gets bitten on the shoulder. He gets bitten on the leg. He gets his arm like back. She gets bitten on the arm. She gets bitten. Actually, they get bitten in the same spots. That's odd. Interesting. But they both get bitten fairly, and they're like, they kind of grimace a little bit, and I'm like, that'd be the end for me. Like, it could take a little nibble out of, like, my pinky, and I'd be like, that's it. I might as well just sit in the waters and drown and wait for death to consume me. Either the waters will consume me or the gators will. Either way, I'm done. But that's why I'm not an action hero. Even though, I look the part. I think I've pretty much covered my bases. I very much enjoyed this movie. I would see it again, and I would recommend other people see it as well, especially if you like monster movies and you think the shark ones are a little overdone. You finally see like a different monster in there. Yeah, I would say this is one of the good ones worth seeing. Oh, sorry, you caught me in the middle of eating an alligator stick. You've heard my stream of conscious thoughts. Now it's time for you to hear some well-thought-out points. Number 1, gator behavior. Okay, so I made a joke about alligator behavior, but in reality, I don't know piss about alligators or their behavior. All I know about them is they are scary monsters, I'm deathly afraid of being eaten by one, and they taste great. Wouldn't it be lovely if everything you were afraid of also tasted great? It's like, yeah, I'm afraid of one day dying alone, but it's like ambrosia, the sweet nectar of loneliness. In any case, the alligators in this movie behave very much like they are in a movie. They hiss, they roar, jump scare, and menace their way through the proceedings. They're fast, they're deadly, they're smart. I don't know, maybe there's just a difference between the alligators you see at the zoo versus the ones that are in a movie spawned by Category 5 hurricanes. It's just, they're not like any gators I've ever seen. But then again, you couldn't really make a movie about a fat, lazy alligator floating on down the stream with algae getting into its eyeballs. It's like, ugh. Blink, dumb lizard. Number 2, a simple setting. You know something? This movie's actually kind of genius. It wanted to have a scary monster attacking a house, but it didn't want to be ridiculous like a Sharknado movie. Let's face it, finding an alligator in or around your house isn't exactly uncommon. People are finding alligators in their pools all the time. Of course, they're just lazily sitting there, getting chlorine in their eyes. Blink, you dumb lizard. It's actually the hurricane backdrop that I find so genius. It keeps the characters trapped, it keeps their cell phones unusable, and the flooding limits their movements. Because let's face it, if I found an alligator in my house and I had the ability to leave, I'd be on the first flight to fucking Nova Scotia. The movie's just set in a house. Most of it's in a cramped basement crawl space. The characters are trapped not only by the alligators, but by the piping running through the house, and the flooding is limiting where they can go. They can't even go to the safety of the outdoors because of the horrible flooding and more gators on the horizon. The movie has a claustrophobic feel, and it's really hammered home by an excellent use of close-up shots. It's genius. I loved it. Number 3, my only issue. Okay, so if I did have one problem, it's that this movie ended a little too abruptly. And by that I mean, alright, we're gonna get into spoilers here, okay? So they all survive, and they're on the roof of their house, and they see a helicopter coming towards them, and it's gonna pick them up. Okay, and it's descending, and you see it's got that little bed thing that they lay on. It's gonna pick them all up, but it shows the helicopter, it's like swaying in the wind, and she's holding up a flare to like signal it down. And she's looking back at her father, who's like looking up at her, and it's supposed to be like this like shining moment, but and then it cuts to black. There's like no money shot of them actually safely boarding the helicopter, which yeah, like I said, I'm stretching. This movie is a 10 out of 10. You know why? Because the dog survives. Yeah, I thought this movie was incredible. There's a great scene where an alligator gets stabbed in the eye with a screwdriver. It's amazing. Blink, dumb lizard. Or I'll eat your cousin. I think he's got 5% pork in him.
Come on, you son of a bitch!
An alligator stick is doing something to my innards. Oh well. If you're new here and you liked what you saw, give us a sub and chomp down on that like button. Remember, there's new content in the works here all the time, so until the next bit of whatever that is arrives, I'll see you soon, my decent friends.